Hello everyone and welcome back to Coffee with Developers. This episode is very special because we are here in Stuttgart in the Mercedes-Benz Museum. If you happen to be in the city or around, you should really visit this place. It's really special. You get this vibe. You really feel this 150 years of innovation, transformation of the automotive industry, really nice cars. You really feel the soul of it. But we are not just here to look at beautiful cars. We're also here to meet with the CIO of Mercedes-Benz, Katrin Lehmann, who truly is a global tech leader in the automotive sector. We're going to talk with her about her own personal career path, but also about her views about the future of technology, about the automotive sector, and obviously about AI and software development. So stay tuned and let's see what we can learn today.
So we just exchanged a few personal stories about our favorite cars.
This one is actually kind of, I think, one of the masterpieces that everyone can relate to.
Everyone knows from movies and...
Exactly.
That's a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah, this is really nice.
It's a roadster. This is the Mercedes-Benz 500K special roadster for the rich and famous. So that was in the 30s.
160 kilometer an hour top speed. The first car was built in 1886. Even back then, innovation is pacing fast. Welcome, Katrin.
Thanks a lot. Happy to have you here. Welcome to Stuttgart.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
Yes.
You're probably a very busy person in this role.
Most of the time, yes.
Overseeing probably thousands of employees in your organization. But before we come to that, I'd like to understand a bit more kind of how was your career path so far? Mm-hmm. So I know that you worked for almost 2 decades in a small software company called SAP.
Very small.
Which some of us are probably familiar with. And that you're a real technologist, like a hands-on person with a lot of technological background and hands-on experience. And so maybe just tell us a bit about what motivated you to start a career in tech and how did you come to this point in time?
To be honest, I'm not a classical tech person. So I was kind of a nerdy kid. I always loved math and physics and was always eager to learn in those areas. But at one point in time, when I was the only girl in my physics major in school, I was a bit annoyed and I thought, no, I can't study informatics. It's not possible. I need a little bit more diversity. So I ended up studying economics. And I regretted it many times. But I started out directly in the IT department of the company that I studied with, and did data migrations and learned programming there.
Okay.
So I didn't learn it in university. So if people will look it up, I'm not a real tech person. I had to learn it on my own.
Okay. But, well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a tech degree in order to be a tech person, as history tells us, right? I mean, I think that many of the pioneers in tech didn't have like a classical tech education, but were basically learning the things themselves or even inventing the things for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is kind of the starting point. But how did you land actually your first job?
So I studied in a system called dual studies. That's very typical here in Germany, where you have a contract with a company and you learn the different departments. And the one that interested me the most was the IT department. Mm-hmm. So then they took me over. So that was actually my first role, and I started out with an R2 and R3 migration topic. I was really into SAP topics straight from the start. So also my first programming language was ABAP that I learned, and I did lots of migration projects, lots of programming, and in 2004 I then switched to SAP directly. Mm-hmm. And did a lot of technical consulting things there, and supported other companies to implement SAP. And so therefore, I'm an SAP person, but I was always interested in other technology as well. So
okay, I mean, you've obviously always worked a lot of, with data, topics around data, which in the early 2000s maybe is a lot different to today, right? Because was it back then cool to work with data?
no, it was completely uncool.
Yeah.
But I always
Boring, so to say, kind of for people who are unfamiliar with it.
So the worst of it was something called master data.
Yeah.
So if you would say that, everyone would be like, oh, go away, this is not interesting at all. But I thought always this is the core. If you don't get that data right, you have an issue. So therefore I always had a passion for these topics.
Okay, good. Yeah, and basically, 2 decades later, it actually pays off.
Yes.
Pays off. Okay, and then how were the position hops at SAP? Like, what kind of how did your responsibility grow over the time?
So actually, I was in technical consulting for data, for master data governance topics. Also the integration platform called XI back then in SAP, and learned to connect not only SAP systems but also other technologies for a long time. I also took on solution management roles there, and then only 10 years ago, actually, I switched to a role in the internal IT at SAP to implement the internal S/4HANA systems there. And after that, I did the integration of a company that SAP back then bought called Concur. Some of you might know that. It's a travel cost software that was bought about 10 years ago, and that needed to be integrated into SAP. I did that M&A project, and then later on, Christian Klein, who's now the CEO, asked me if I wanted to do the data topic, to be the first chief data officer. And I was really passionate about that, because I think to have a role like that was quite new. Chief data officers by now are known, every company has one, but back then not many companies had one. And SAP didn't have one either. And I was able to create my own department there and build a team and come up with a data strategy and learn how much technology is important, but also how much culture is important, and how thinking is important, and how tone from the top is important, to say we take all decisions in our company based on data. And I think that's a huge game changer. So that was one of my favorite roles, I would say, to be the chief data officer.
That's interesting, especially if you consider that, SAP basically is there to manage data and, process data and so on and so on. Basically having this kind of a role, no matter how it looks, how it is called, very late in time. It's actually very interesting to think about. But let's go a bit into the future, fast forward. So at some point you decided to switch to the automotive sector. So you basically made a transition from a basically pure software company, right, to a company in the automotive sector, which is a bit more kind of, legacy. It's basically the opposite of it, but with the challenge that obviously nowadays all companies want to become more kind of, like technology companies, data-driven companies. There's a lot of digital and also cultural transformation happening. What motivated you actually to switch from a software company to a totally different type of organization?
So I think at one point in time, I'm a person that always needs to learn something new. Yeah? So always a couple of months into a new role, my husband would say, "Are you bored already?" So I love to learn new things. And eventually, after COVID, I was a little bit in a mode where I was like, I do this specific role now. And at that point in time, that was leading a pretty big development team. And I was a little bit bored. Something new needed to come. And inside, there was nothing on the horizon. And at that point in time, someone asked me, "Would you like to join Mercedes?" And I thought, well, why not? Finally, something where you can touch and feel the products, where you can drive something, where you can be the cool mom because you drive the coolest car, and where you can actually see what software can do to your daily life. So I kind of really like the idea, and when you walk through there, you really get a little bit humble because of all that legacy and how it changed the world, and I think software will also change the world.
Yeah, it does.
So therefore, I think it's a very nice match.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you said, a few things that I really can relate to. So first of all, when you go through this museum, and if you ever happen to, be in Stuttgart or somewhere near, I really can just recommend to come here and feel it. Like, you really have to be here and feel it. It's kind of super interesting, and you kind of feel very small.
Yes, very humble.
Because you see basically for the past 150 years some amazing history here. Also how technology, not just from the lenses of cars and automotives evolved, but you really can feel the technological advancements and the craftsmanship and all of these things, and this is kind of really to be respected, and you can feel that here. That's interesting. You also said you want to be a cool mom. I know you have 4 kids.
Yes, 4 teenagers.
Wow, that deserves a lot of respect.
Thank you.
And are they also kind of car enthusiasts?
Oh yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So we have the possibility, that's one of the advantages of working for a car company, that you can switch your company car over the weekend for a car that sits in the garage.
Okay.
So sometimes I have the opportunity to bring a new car or something that the kids really would wish to drive over a weekend. So sometimes they say, "Can you bring a G-Class, Mom?"
Oh, wow.
So I take a G-Class
why
home,
not?
and then for one weekend I'm the cool mom, yes.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Can you go to work later on Monday? Can you pass by school?" Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
That's awesome. Okay. When you switched to Mercedes, basically you said you got a call. So obviously you didn't apply proactively for the position, but you got a call. Who called you?
Actually, it was from my network.
Okay.
It was a female colleague from my Gen CO network
Okay.
who approached me.
Cool. And she worked at Mercedes?
Yes, she used to work at Mercedes, and she said, "You've been with SAP now for such a long time, and you're not old yet. Do you want to retire there?
Yeah.
We have really cool products, and we have really cool digital journey in front of us. Why don't you join us?"
Okay. And then out of curiosity, what were the next steps? Like kind of, okay, you got this call, then do you go to to an interview, or do you meet the board, or like how does that work?
Actually it was easier or quicker than I thought, to be honest. I didn't even have a CV.
Yeah, or for what you don't need one, like.
So I had to update my CV rather quickly over a weekend. I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to take pictures. I needed to update my CV. I didn't have anything in store.
But did they require it?
Yes, they wanted to see it. So the HR department did want to see it, and I had a short meeting with HR, and then later on I met the CIO at the time. And then immediately afterwards, it's a very funny story. Actually, I took the Audi of my husband to come here, and they asked, and I asked where to park, and they said directly in front of the board building. And so I was like, "Are you sure?" And I parked my Audi in front of the board building. I met Ola that day, and he also wanted to check if that works.
Yeah.
And we had a half an hour chat, and actually that was it.
Okay.
Already.
Oh wow.
It was not very complicated. Yes.
Okay. I mean, let's clear one thing up. Being a CIO is probably very different in every company, right? And many people maybe who haven't been in touch with this role don't even understand kind of what it involves. So maybe you can explain briefly kind of what such a role involves. Like what is the responsibility or the goal, or what does it encompass for the ones who just ask themselves, okay, we read often about CIOs, but what are they actually doing?
Yeah, so actually I'm responsible for everything that you need to run this company. I'm not responsible for the in-car pieces. So the software in the car, there's a colleague, Magnus Ösberg, who's responsible for that. But I'm responsible for all of the enterprise IT. So starting from the computers, the cell phones that every employee uses, but also in the sales departments, in the after-sales departments, that the subsidiaries can run their daily business, the online sales platforms, then also the production plants. So ensuring that we can produce cars. All the software that's needed for that is also in my responsibility.
Wow.
And that means if we have incidents, that's also on my responsibility.
Okay.
So therefore my cell phone is rarely on mute. And also cybersecurity, also the cloud platforms, the on-prem platforms, all the infrastructure, but also the finance systems, HR systems, everything.
Yeah, that's
So you're laughing.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a lot. I mean, it's the foundation
Yes.
of basically, making sure that the product organizations, let's call them like that for a moment, build their products and they have everything they need in order to deliver. So basically, this is kind of okay, and that basically.
But also it
is
contains software developers.
Yeah.
So we have a huge community of software developers around the world. Also a huge hub in India that develops either software that you cannot buy off the shelf.
Okay, so basically, you are responsible that everyone in the organization can build great products and that they have everything they need in order to, deliver. And this involves a lot. I've learned basically from the panel discussion last year at WeAreDevelopers World Congress, where you said that you have rolled out GitHub Copilot to 5,000 developers in the organization, which is quite a lot. How can one imagine such a rollout at scale? Like, probably it isn't just like, hey, here's the tool, use it.
Go for it.
How you like it, go for it. Yes, like how can one imagine this?
No,
kind of thing?
so these kind of rollouts, we usually have a test group, a pilot group that tests out a new solution first, and then we decide whether it works for us or not. We already did that, I think, almost 3 years ago now. We had this group of developers testing it, and they were really excited.
Okay.
So therefore, then we decided to roll it out completely. We obviously did trainings and offered trainings, but the normal developer doesn't like just online training. What they like most is peer learning, right?
How can one imagine actually kind of the organization of the technical teams inside Mercedes-Benz, and also the alignment of these, the alignment also with the in-car systems and so on. How does this look like?
So that depends a little bit on the team. Yeah, so we have teams that are doing workplace support for computers and so on. They are organized differently than the development team in India, right? And what we have introduced, though, is a methodology called SAFe. Most of you will know it. It's the Agile framework. So we work with our business counterparts in product teams, in SAFe teams, and we try to really get this through the organization. Sometimes it's difficult because in a company like ours, some of our colleagues still want the Gantt charts and want to know when the go live of a certain software is. So it's also a lot of culture change, lots of education inside the company. And also, to be honest, when we have car launches, we have specific dates. So therefore, yes, agile, but also working with clear dates.
At some point.
Right. And how do we work with the in-car software teams? We deliver the end-to-end software journey. So all the tools, all the foundation for Magnus and team to be able to build this new MB.OS software for the cars. and we do the over-the-air updates and so on.
Which, by the way, you can experience at WeAreDevelopers World Congress 2025 live. So we're gonna have a small surprise there. So basically, what you're saying is your teams also serve as kind of what we call today a platform engineering.
Yes.
For the entire organization, which is basically organization in itself, obviously. Are there other kind of principles that you have? Or let's put it like this: like, what is, in your view, what is kind of an ideal engineering culture? Like, what's your vision of the perfect engineering culture?
The perfect engineering culture, data-driven.
Yeah. And
so therefore, agile to respond and quick to analyze what's going wrong. I love a lot of new functionality for process mining to ensure that we really have the right processes in place that support the developers and are not hindering them, because in a big corporation like ours, it's sometimes difficult to navigate with all the rules and all the things that you need to adhere to. And if we can get rid of that and the colleagues can just focus on creativity and focus on programming and the tools will take care of all the rest, I think that would be wonderful.
Okay, and what do you do at Mercedes-Benz to basically achieve that perfect vision of the engineering culture for yourself?
So right now we have a developer survey running. So we always ask, how can we get better? What's hindering you? What are the things that we need to change? What are the things you need to do 2, 3, 5 times to get there? What do you need to do differently when you're working in different teams? And we need to standardize that. We need to take that out of our way. So we ensure that we really talk to each and every one to understand how can we get better. And that's the only way. You will never be perfect. You will need to work continuously to be better at what you're doing.
So basically, it's actually nothing new, but the way how you do it, you collect feedback, you have your iterations, you try to make things better. Okay, how do you use your self-AI? Kind of, we always talk about organizations, developers, non-developers, whatever, using AI to become more productive. I rarely talk with people about how do executives use AI. How does that change your own role, right? Kind of, are you needed at all at some point? So joking a bit, but basically, how do you use it for yourself?
I use Copilot a lot to prepare, to summarize things, to prepare for meetings. Obviously, also to check in documents that were written in the past to ensure that decisions that we take adhere to whatever we have decided in former meetings. I didn't grow up in Mercedes, so a lot of things I don't know. So for me, it's also like an onboarding buddy. Sometimes if I don't know something, I just go to direct chat and ask about, okay, where do I need to go to ask X, Y, Z? So for me, it's really a productivity boost because I have someone that I can talk to. And the idea should really be that we also have agents doing a lot of our work and a lot of the work that currently also my office team needs to do. So at the moment, we have still lots of different systems to do different things. And in the future, hopefully, AI agents will do that for us, and we can focus on the more creative tasks.
Yeah, but this is interesting. And how do you stay? I mean, this is also a bit of an answer for my next question, which would have been like, how do you stay yourself up to date? I mean, you have a huge responsibility for many people. There is tons of topics. You have to pick like kind of where you put your focus and basically, where you put the cognitive load, right? So do you have a routine or a strategy of how you stay up to date? And I mean, not just reading headlines and news, but also kind of if you are interested in diving deeper into a specific topic.
So I think you have to block time in your calendar, otherwise you will not do it.
It's as simple as that. I do that all the time, but it doesn't hinder me from doing still something different than it's.
But the difference is, I have the luxury that I have personal coaching, so to say, from our experts. So the colleagues that are really deeply in the new tech topics, they do reverse mentoring for us. And I have blocked 1 hour every Friday morning for my entire management team. So the entire leadership team gets coaching from our MBTI experts, from the tech innovation experts, and they teach us how to build your own agents, for example. We have so much fun. So so we really do hands-on programming, and sometimes we look quite stupid, but we laugh about each other. But we also learn how to manage certain workflows and so on. So we actually learn 1 hour every Friday. At the beginning of the meeting, we always get an update on what's this week's news. So what happened the week when DeepSeek came out, big time. There was a huge topic that we looked into, or whatever is happening. So just yesterday was ServiceNow conference. So every week we learn something, what's going on in the AI space, and then we do hands-on. We try to learn which tool do you use for what, what's the best and to use in which case. We can ask all our stupid questions, and and we also share. So then until the next week, everyone has tested out something. Usually also in a private environment. Sometimes we use it to organize our spare time and to organize school activities and stuff like that. And then we share how that works. And it's just continuous learning. And none of us has learned that in university. So we need to ensure that we stay up to date. And we talk about it openly and offer also learning opportunities for the whole organization. But I think it's toned from the top. So if my organization knows that we are building our own agents, that we're sitting there every Friday learning, then it's also a call out and a shout out to the organization to ensure that they keep up to date.
I mean, what I find interesting is we all know that this kind of technology and evolves at basically an exponential speed, right? So, and when you think about a year or two ago, we all said, okay, Gen AI is the next big thing. I mean, Jules Polsky basically made a nice comparison at the Congress of, hey, what's the next kind of era? There was the internet era, the information era, the mobile era, the social media era, and so on. And then was the question 2 years ago, I think the question was what's the next thing? Is it like blockchain? So his answer was, these guys had more than 10 years to prove that it really can do something. So no, that's not. Quantum is still further away. And other things, and then it was hey, it's generative AI, which obviously it is. But already now, as you mentioned, we are talking now about things like agents,
agentic,
which is again another new layer, and then we have other things coming up. So I think at some point we just need to accept that we can't keep up with all the trends, and at the end of the day, maybe we stay users. And have, again, applied this kind of T-shape, know something about everything and know a lot thing about one thing, maybe.
Right. But I think we saw a quote upstairs when we first walked into the museum with the horse. And I really like that. So the Kaiser Wilhelm, he was convinced that the automobile would not really be
Replace
something that people would use in the future. He was convinced that the horse will be the vehicle that people will use forever. And I think it's the same with what's happening right now. Everyone's reading about Gen AI, and everyone is trying it out a little bit, and some are using Perplexity or other tools in their daily life, and they start experiencing it. But there are also still a lot of people who think it will go away. And I don't believe that. I
No,
believe it's
I-
here to stay, and I think we will need to adapt rather
You
quickly.
need to introduce me to these guys. Doesn't make sense. What I often hear, or what I'm often asked from journalists, media, and so on, is like, hey, is AI going to take away the jobs of developers? And many people are kind of really concerned about that, but like mostly the non-engineers, because this, and they read news like Mark Zuckerberg said something, and someone differently like said like, okay, it's taking 30%, 50%, 15%, 70% of the coding away. So the conclusion is there will be less developers in the future. And then I'm always kind of thinking, like, if you are deeply involved in technology and you know how it works, you immediately have to answer that basically because of the rising demand,
Right.
you will need more
Yes.
people, right? And also kind of it shows a bit how non-techies think about techies, because I mean, the interface of how you tell a machine how to do something, yes, it is maybe in the past years, it was you type something in a keyboard. I mean, 50, 60, 70 years ago, you didn't have a keyboard, you
Right.
had this cards. Now probably like with GitHub Spark and so on, you can talk to the machine and so on.
Right.
Like people, I think, don't understand that coding is not the main, like writing, typing commands is not the main responsibility of developers. And I have not met a single developer engineer so far who said like, hey, I really fear that I will lose my
No,
job.
me neither.
I mean, they can fear that they need to learn, because
Right.
otherwise they will not stay on up to date. But maybe I'm seeing it differently, and I don't know. What's your opinion? Will we
So-
have more developers, less developers? How will it change?
So I think the role of a developer will evolve. And as you said, the demand is still huge. So especially in Germany, we're not very digital yet. So I think in Mercedes, we're quite okay. But compared to others, we still also have a long way to go. And in regards, everything's going to be digital, and we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So we will definitely have huge demand. And the more the technology advances that helps developers to be quicker and more productive, the better.
Yeah.
Because we have so much demand, and therefore we will definitely also need more developers to help us. And the better they are supported, the demand can be.
I mean, I think of it, if productivity goes up, right, then probably, the cost goes down of software development. If the cost of software development goes down, I mean, I have myself, for me personally, like tons of ideas of software that I could use, that I could need,
Absolutely.
right? It's just too expensive to do it,
Right.
or to order it or so.
Right.
So basically, I think that people underestimate the demand of what you need as a software to do everything that we all want. You mentioned digitalization, in a country, in companies, digital transformations, personal tools, like it's never ending.
Right.
I think it's more kind of, it's gonna become at some point easier of what is a software developer? I mean, when we talk about WeAreDevelopers, we say developers are not we don't see it as people who code. It's basically people who build something, right? And if more people are enabled to build something, no matter what interface they use, for us, they are developers.
Right.
Yeah, like Tom Donker with
Yes.
his vision for GitHub, like kind of 1 billion developers. So
Right.
everyone's going to become a developer who can build stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
When you just, joined Mercedes in the early days, the onboarding and so on, was there a moment where you would say like, hey, aha, wow, like this kind of moment where you've been really surprised and didn't expect that at this company?
Well, I'm not sure if I expected it, but I think the moment where I sat in the car in Emmendingen with this helmet on my head, and we drove, 350 around the track, and then afterwards directly jumping into a car that did those things on its own without a driver in it. That was quite amazing. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And you need a lot of software developers for ADAS. So that was really amazing, and I was quite blown away. And I was a little bit shaking afterwards.
Yeah. I took a look a bit about these kind of AI systems. They basically kind of with every round they kind of learn, and then they can
Yes.
become faster and faster and
Yes.
faster, and that's super interesting to
Yeah, and
watch.
if you sit in there, then you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So, yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Maybe to come slowly to an ending, we have to talk a bit about it, at least a sentence or two. Currently, like, the world is a bit going crazy. One thing that probably for us working in the technology sector often is kind of a concern is that we in Europe kind of knowing that you're a global organization, but especially we in Europe on the old continent, we often have the feeling we lag behind in certain areas, be it technology, innovation, AI, things like that. Do you agree with that? Is that just an impression that we have ourselves? And if you would say it is true, what is the kind of thing that we need to change that? Like, what are we missing? Is it the spirit? Is it the money? Is it
yeah, so
what can we do about it?
So I was part of the EU AI summit in Paris. And funny story, I drove there and I was running around in Paris looking for the entrance. And someone else was also running around looking for the entrance. We were talking, he came from MIT and he was a guy from Sweden. Yeah. And he was a professor at MIT. And we started talking, and I think we have lots of really, really well-educated, really awesome, cool people in Europe.
Yeah.
But then
They work abroad.
They go to the US or somewhere else to work. Why is that? I think that we need to change because we have good education, we have cool people, we have innovation, we have cool
social
ideas.
Security, you have all of these
Yes,
things.
but what do we need to change? We need to change the investment.
Yeah.
So I think in Europe the investments are still not going enough into the tech sector. So I think we need more focus on it. I think it's a starting point that finally we have a digital ministerium in Germany now.
That's good.
With lots of so I checked some of the guardrails there. I think it's going into the right direction. Partnering with France even closer because they have also lots of very cool startups and good ideas. They have already focused from a governmental perspective way more in the tech sector. Station F is the place where all the startups are meeting and have an environment to grow. Mistral AI is a great example of a European company that has played a crucial role. But I think we just need to team up better in Europe. I think we have the knowledge, we have the people, we need more investment. I think
What's hindering the investments? Is it things like regulation, which leads to maybe some uncertainty at some point, or what is?
I think it's a combination. I think it's lots of regulation, but I think it's also a cultural topic.
Yeah.
So people, and I discussed that with my US colleagues, people in Germany and Europe are maybe a little bit more conservative.
Yeah.
They would rather invest into housing than into tech. And I think therefore, and I think in other areas of the world, this is a little bit of a different mindset.
Yeah.
So I think we need to switch gears here and we need to team up. And I think we have lots of great skills here that we can leverage even better.
Yeah. Do we need to be a bit more kind of, risky in the sense of, I often also have the feeling working with European companies and partners that we are kind of, we want to know the result of something in advance, right?
Yes.
Which I don't think is how innovation often works. You have to risk also to fail, and that you see in the US,
And maybe you need a little bit more female founders, because
yes.
Berta Benz, for example, she was the one
Berta
ensuring
Benz,
that the car that her husband
Yes.
created would be put into action. And I think we see the same in some of the tech areas these days.
Yeah. What is some advice for young folks in general, also for young girls, women, who want to, grow into a leadership position like yours, that you can give them? I mean, you probably, if you want or not, but you probably serve also as a role model
Yes.
for other young people. So what some message you can share with them?
So don't be stupid like me and be be afraid of going to a place where just men are in the class.
Yeah.
Show up there, go into tech, learn the relevant and cool stuff, and not only girls but also boys. I think it's the place to be, because you can change so much so quickly when you have this interest in tech, and you can change in all industries. You can change things that have been done differently the last 100 years. You can change with tech, and so therefore go into these areas, study informatics, learn consistently new things, test them out, and ensure that this knowledge stays in Europe. Do your startup here and not in the US. Stay here and ensure that we have the next unicorns here.
We're going to do a short word wrap.
All right.
Okay? So you have, like, let's say, it says 5 seconds. Let's say you have 3 seconds for each answer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You can also jump over that. So a simple one. Will there be more or less developers in the future?
More.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
When you work with music or in silence?
Silence.
Silence. When you listen to music, what music?
Pop.
Pop. Favorite song?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
I don't know. Is there a song that is called I don't know, or is this the answer?
No.
Mac or PC?
PC.
PC. Sports car, supercar, or family van?
Family van.
Family van,
Boring,
great.
sorry.
Dream road trip car?
Oh, well, that's an SL.
Okay, good. And tabs or spaces?
Tabs.
Tabs, good one. Next one. If you could have dinner with one specific person, no matter from the past or present, who would that be?
I think Mira Murati.
Okay, why?
Because she's one of these frontrunners that she's the CTO, or she used to be the CTO of OpenAI, and she's now founding her next endeavor. I think she's one of these females that really have, the innovation spirit that we need these days.
Yeah. Okay, we've tried to invite her to the WeAreDevelopers World Congress.
Please.
Maybe if we cut your answer out and send that video clip to her, maybe that's an additional argument for her to come.
Please, go
so
for it.
maybe we can do that.
That would be awesome.
Let's try it, right? Favorite app on your smartphone?
The Peloton one.
Favorite gadget you can't live without?
It's actually my smartphone.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird.
I'm not the classical developer, but yes, that's me.
Yeah. So last one, what are you excited about in the future?
I'm excited about quantum.
Quantum?
Yes.
Cool. Me too. That's super interesting topic.
Yes.
It's
amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand, and I love it.
Okay, but we unfortunately have to end this podcast because your team in the background is already becoming very nervous.
Yes, I know.
So, Katrin, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
A lot of fun.
I hope you enjoyed it here in Stuttgart.
Yeah, we really love it. We'll still do some filming here, and looking forward to seeing you in Berlin in July again.
Absolutely, me too.
Thanks
for coming.
Thank you for having us.